In fact, what's really cool is if an elite tennis player takes up running, they actually get more blood flow to their dominant arm just because of the capillarization, right? So you really do have to figure out what muscle group it is you want to grow. Then how can you quite literally endurance train that muscle for 48 weeks to get that angiogenesis and then go back to bodybuilding?
Bringing you a reasoned approach to health and fitness. This is the Phi Life Podcast.
Welcome to the Phi Life Podcast. I'm John Barbin. With me is Brad Pilon. And today, Brad has, I guess, a thought experiment. So I'm just going to throw it over to him.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something we've been working on for a while. It just happened to be one of those things where, you're reading one paper, research paper, leads to another paper, and all of a sudden you're down a rabbit hole at 2 a.m. in the morning. So this one was about capillaries and the super small blood vessels that supply blood and nutrients to your muscles. All right. So capillaries are pretty cool because they're like literally no metabolically active tissue in your entire body is farther than maybe like a few hundred micrometers away from a capillary. They're what infuse all of your muscles with blood. So it's what carries oxygen to your muscles, but really importantly for us being, muscle heads, it also carries the amino acids, carbohydrates, glucose, those kind of things, the nutrients to your muscles, right? So now we grow capillaries anytime we need more oxygen. So a person who exercises a lot will grow new capillaries. Along the same lines, when you stop exercising, eventually, not right away, these regress and you kind of go back down to whatever capillary demand you have. So in general, this is a supply and demand aspect of your body, right? The more oxygen a muscle regularly needs, the larger the capillary bed around that muscle. To give you an idea, like an not unhealthy, but a healthy, untrained person, you're going to have like a 1.5 capillaries per muscle fiber. But an endurance athlete, that could be like 3 to 3.5. So there is a very big difference. Now, aging and inactivity both result in the loss of capillaries. But what's really cool is when you start exercising, doesn't matter your age, you get this thing called angiogenesis and you get more capillary growth. And that growth seems to be the same. Doesn't matter if you're 18 or 81, which is really cool for us. Because what we've recently come across is that capillary density in a muscle has been shown to be a crucial predictor of that muscle's ability to grow or hypertrophy, right? So in fact, before growth, there's a period of time where angiogenesis or new capillaries are created, and that allows the growth to happen. So there seems to be some sort of ratio between capillary density and muscle mass. But in a chicken and egg scenario, we realize the capillary density may be what has to be there first. All right, so what's this mean for us? This is kind of cool. If you have a legging muscle group, and if specifically that muscle group, let's say, is your legs, a short period of time where you focus on endurance training, let's say 4 to 8 weeks, something like that, a block of training where you're kind of taking a break from your lifting and you're working on just endurance training. And then if you move back to weight training, you may be able to get some new growth. And John, you and I have seen this. We both have buddies who were track long distance runners in high school and then gave it up, got into bodybuilding and had massive legs, right? We've also got a buddy who was a swimmer and a basketball player. The guys who just had a very high sort of endurance based background, who then when they stopped and went into weight training, those specific muscle groups tended to be the ones that blew up. The problem is it's muscle group specific. So you're not going to blow up your forearms by taking up running. In fact, what's really cool is if an elite tennis player takes up running, they actually get more blood flow to their dominant arm just because of the capillarization, right? So you really do have to figure out what muscle group it is you want to grow. Then how can you quite literally endurance train that muscle for 48 weeks to get that angiogenesis and then go back to bodybuilding. So I thought this was kind of an interesting hypothetical hack that people could try if you've got legging muscle groups, but you've tried the whole train it heavier or train it more or train it first, and none of that's worked. It might be, let's get that increased capillary density and have more nutrients being delivered.
Right. And this is seeing the muscle for all of its parts, not just how strong it is, and not just thinking in terms of weight training. Am I going to do heavier lower reps? Am I going to do more volume? If anything, a volume style of training would add to this effect of capillary density. And in the absence of just super physiological doses of anabolics, there is no other example of how you'd ever build a muscle without this effect also happening. And I would argue, I'm sure capillary density goes up just from the presence of a lot of anabolics. So
I was just going to tell you that. Yeah, testosterone is angiogenic, so it creates more capillaries just in general. Here's an interesting one for you, though. Do you remember back when we talked about competition theory and how your muscles and your body fat compete for nutrients, et cetera? During periods of overeating, your subcutaneous fat, especially around your midsection, has a huge angiogenic response because it needs a way to disperse those nutrients, that extra calorie, those extra fat to that tissue. So it's almost like what you're now doing is trying to outcompete your fat. You want the muscles to have that capillary density, be like, yeah, I can just deliver an unbelievable amount of nutrients to the muscles, and they kind of starve out the fat. So everything is in competition. So it is interesting to kind of think our way through this and be like, could we tip it just in the favor of muscle a bit by taking this sort of brief period of time and really working on endurance training? And it is going to be a one step back, two steps forward thing. Like you may see some loss of size during that 6 to 8 week period of training. It might be just in your head, but it might be happening. But you're doing it so that eventually you might be able to grow even bigger towards the second phase.
Right. And that's that's not to say you have to do capillary density training specifically. It's to get the thought clear in your head that all training has an effect on your muscles, even if it's not a traditional bodybuilding workout.
Yeah.
At least as far as you're viewing it. Capillary, and to Brad's point on competition theory, that's I guess we should do a whole talk on that at some point. But it's really instructive to know that if you're overeating and your body needs to figure out where to put those nutrients, and your fat stores are the body's safest place to put it, as compared to pathological fat storage in your organs themselves, like a fatty liver, you're storing it in the organs where it does not belong. So the appropriate place your body wants to put excess calories is in your body fat stores. We don't like the way it looks, but that's the
safest spot. Yeah.
Quote unquote healthy place to put it versus it accumulating in your organs. And it's totally reasonable that your body lays down more capillaries, but capillaries are just tiny, tiny little blood vessels, to get it into those fat stores. So you're essentially building fat the way you would prefer to build muscle, which is it's a really good way to look at your muscle building workouts or your cardio plus your muscle building workouts put together as outcompeting your fat cells, not only for the nutrients, just how much carbohydrate did you eat, how much protein, how much fat did you eat, where would you like it to go? So you're trying to coax it into the muscle to burn it and or use some of the protein to build it. You're also building the scaffolding and the structure and the delivery mechanism for your muscles on a routine basis to outcompete your fat cells. And hopefully, I don't know, Brad, if you've done this research, but hopefully that also leads to the capillary density around your fat cells to potentially pull back a bit. I don't know. Is that a thing? If you do enough. Okay.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, two things there. It does pull back. It does regress. Because it's always kind of doing a supply and demand thing. So as it and the fat kind of go down, it's a kind of a chicken and egg thing again, where you're not sure which one's driving each other. But on the opposite side, the flip side of that, if you expand your fat too quickly and too quick for the angiogenesis to keep up, that's when you get into that dysregulated fat cells. And that's what they think lead to all the health implications of obesity. So it's like if you gained weight slowly, or you had the proper capillarization for that fat mass, you're okay. It's when the fat mass is expanding, kind of like, I don't know how all of North America builds cities, but not enough roads. The same idea, right? You just cause these crazy traffic jams and then things don't work. So in essence, then the angiogenic part of cardiovascular training, the vascular part, is actually really important for both your muscles and your body fat in a very holistic, when you're looking at not just, to your point, the muscle fiber, but then, the nervous system that supplies the impulses and the vascular system that supplies the blood to that, which supplies all the nutrients and oxygen. You get a very interesting picture of exactly just how well-rounded your training needs to be. And if you have areas in your body that are just not responding to muscle building, I mean, it could be innervation. They could not be getting quite the signal that you want, but it also could be it just maybe needs more blood flow, maybe needs more nutrients being delivered, and you might need to build some more roads because the population's getting higher. That kind of horrible analogy.
No, that's a good one, actually. I just like to view capillaries as branches on a tree.
Yeah.
So the closer you get to your heart, the bigger the blood vessels are. The ones coming right out of your heart are really big, like the size of your fingers, sort of thing. And then by the time those blood vessels make it all the way to whatever tissue, which is a capillary, they're tiny, tiny, like they get so small that like one red blood cell gets through at a time. That's how small they can get.
It's crazy.
And that's how it delivers to all of your tissues. But this brings up the point of strength is one thing, but it's not everything. Power lifters are known to get stronger and stronger and stronger, but they don't actually ever get any bigger. Once they get to their sort of competition weight class body weight, that's just where they are. They don't just keep getting bigger and move up in weight class and move up in weight class, but they keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. But
Right.
their training is for the neuromuscular junction. It's for even the angle of the muscle fibers change to make them more powerful. There's particular kinds of adaptation that are specific to heavy directed strength training that don't necessarily lend to this capillary density growth as much as we might want it to be for muscle building, like hypertrophy training. So this, like, bodybuilders can get big all different ways. They lift for a lot of volume with moderate weights. They lift heavier weights, but they mix it all in. But one major thing is this density has to be fostered one way or another for maximum muscle growth. So not maximum strength, but maximum muscle size. Somewhere in there, your training has to stimulate this capillary growth to its as much as you can get out of it without doing so much endurance training that you're stimulating the opposite signal of the body trying to make the muscles slightly smaller for the net effect of delivering more total oxygen. So endurance athletes who don't do much weight training at all, but their goal is to maximize their endurance performance, their body eventually realizes, well, if we're lighter and the muscles are a bit smaller, but they can still finish the competition with a smaller muscle, well, that's just more efficient at delivering oxygen. So there's a little bit of a balance there, but this leads to the idea of a mixed training routine is where you're going to arrive at your best shot at out competing your fat cells. So you're providing the blood flow scaffolding to outcompete your fat cells, but also you're providing the blood cell or the blood delivery mechanism for the muscles to grow to their potential maximum size.
Yeah. So I would actually, I like the idea of even taking a break from weight training, or at least deprioritizing it, and just doing like a 4 to 6 week chunk of just looking up getting ready to run my first marathon type training program online. Just try that, right? So not enough time, to your point, for severe atrophy to occur or anything. Just enough time to be like those muscles recognizing they need better oxygen delivery. And then after 4 or 6 weeks of that, flip back and see how everything feels and you start training again. Not Hapthor. Eddie Hall was a swimmer, and I think Hapthor the Mountain was a basketball player. So it's funny, we have some strong men who actually used to be kind of endurance athletes as well, right? So I just find the idea fascinating. And this isn't something proven by any means that it will work, but I thought just a really interesting hypothetical where you're like, if we increase the angiogenesis for a chunk of time, then flip back, what would that look like? So something for everyone listening to try and then give us feedback. I might actually give it a go with some of the people I train over the next couple of weeks. So maybe we'll report back on that as well.
Mm-hmm. And whether or not you can find an acute effect, I don't think there's any reason not to do mixed training.
Yeah.
Unless you're competing at the highest level in direct strength, where this could actually limit your competition lifts, which I'm sure no one listening is doing that. Other than that, this is the best way for a healthy kind of training. So you're building muscle, which we all want to build muscle, but you're also improving your cardiovascular system, which then will likely help you build muscle. So they go together. I think part of this it's a good thought experiment, because I think at least a lot of guys get worried about losing muscle by doing too much cardio, but that's like, that's not true. Like, you can do
Yeah.
lots of cardio and still build lots of muscle. It's not like you're going to just start training for marathons. That's something completely different. But doing regular cardio is not going to stop you from building muscle. And if anything, to Brad's point, a reasonable amount is probably going to help build muscle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
So I don't
to
know.
mention. No, go ahead.
I was just saying, some for people, if you're stuck, this is definitely something for you to try, right? If other things haven't worked, if the whole, what are the common things, right? Move your legging body part to the front, train it more often, hit some extra, if that's not really doing the trick, this is something for everyone to be like, maybe I'll take a break from that muscle group entirely in weight training, endurance train it, then come back. So if you've got that sort of legging muscle group, it'd be interesting to see how this goes.
Mm-hmm. And so obviously people can picture what to do for legs for this, but for upper body, it could be like using a rowing machine, or even
Yeah.
doing some sort of maybe even an elliptical where you consciously pull and push with your arms a lot more than your legs, like force.
Assault bike, they've got that too, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can find a way to make almost any muscle group be the one as the driver for this type of cardio training.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Brad's not saying stop your weights, but maybe
Deprioritize.
deprioritize.
Yeah.
So pull it back to a couple of sessions a week while
Yeah.
you add this in for a certain amount of time. And to Brad's point, pick a muscle group, maybe the one that you feel is lagging, and see if you can get a direct result or not.
Yeah, there is actually I should look it up, see if they're on Amazon, but they're table ergometers, like it's a mini bike thing with handles on it, and we use it in studies a way back, so I wonder if those still exist. But yeah, so something just creative for you guys to try, guys and girls, if you're looking for a way to maybe pick up a leg and body part.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if last thought here. I wonder if there's such thing as just a lack of capillary density in a given muscle group as compared to the ones around it.
It is specific. It is like the angiogenic effect is really specific to that, the working muscle. So so that would be an interesting thing to look at too, is just how specific is it, right? So but I imagine something like running or swimming, or even the assault bike, you're kind of getting that whole limb, but it would be interesting to see just how tight you can make that creatively.
Yep. All right. So I think that's pretty good place to leave it for now. So if you're going to give it a try, let us know in the comments. Also, we have an email address now. It's phylifeshow@gmail.com. So if you're going to try anything, or you have a story about this, or this is resonating and you've seen this happen, let us know, and also give us some show topics in there if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So for Brad Pilon, I'm John Barbin, and that's your Phi Life Podcast.